Today we're talking about multicam editing and color matching. So today I'm filming on two different cameras for the intro. My regular Canon camera here and my phone here. What I'm going to show you in this tutorial is how to set up your multicam sequence, two different options for how to edit your multicam sequence, and then we're also going to make both of these pieces of footage look like they came from the same camera. And if you're new here, then welcome. My name is Adrienne and I make tutorials on video editing. And now, let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do in this multicam tutorial is do the color matching. You can see I already have the color workspace open in Premiere, and I already have both pieces of footage laid out here on the timeline. I know for today we're going to be using Lumetri. I know we're going to be switching to a different color space, but that won't be happening for another few months, and maybe you're going to run into this situation before then. And so let's walk through the workflow in Lumetri Color now. I already did some really simple color correction to the footage from my Canon camera, and then I applied a LUT. So that's already done, and this is my primary camera. It's the one that I use for all of my tutorials. And then if I move the playhead over here, you can see this is the footage from my iPhone. And on the timeline, you may notice that I've duplicated the footage. That's just because this is a picture of my kiddos in the background and I wanted to blur out their faces. But if you look, you can see I haven't done any color correction or anything to either clip. So what I want to do is try to make this iPhone footage match my Canon footage as closely as possible. A handy button that you can use for this purpose is right down here. It's called Comparison View. If you don't have that under your program monitor, come over to the button editor, and then you can find Comparison View here. It's right there. Click and drag it, and it will come down here, and then you can turn it on. Also, since we're in the color workspace, if you open up Color Wheels and Match, you can turn on Comparison View here as well. So there's two different places you can go. I'm going to turn it on, and you'll see you have the option for selecting the reference image that we're working with, and you move this playhead here in order to select that. And then moving the playhead down here will move this one. It says current. And we're going to come all the way down to the iPhone footage. I'll find a moment where I'm actually looking at the camera. There I am. And this is current is what you are editing, and you're trying to match the reference image. So that's what those two terms mean. The first thing that I'm going to do, honestly, is I'm going to come over to Color Wheel and Match, and I'm going to click this Apply Match. Now I'm going to have to do this twice, once for myself and then once on the second clip for the background, because I do have those two clips there on the timeline. So let's apply match. And that did a nice job already. I'm going to do the background. It matched the green really well. That's a really good starting point. I think that my face looks a little bit more yellow than it does in here. So I'm going to come down to hue versus hue. And I'm just going to select my forehead. And I'm going to, I'm starting to get kind of green there. Let's just bring it down just a hair. And then let's deepen that just a little bit. Hue versus Luma. That's a little bit too dark. That's looking better. I think this image looks a little bit softer, and I certainly have a shallow depth of field, whereas I don't have that on my iPhone. I do want to say when I shot on my iPhone. I used the Beastcam app, and so I was able to match ISOs, and I was able to dial in the exposure here, but I did wind up with a deeper depth of field. So I'm going to click on the background image, and I'm going to open up Creative and just bring down the sharpness a little bit on the background. That's starting to match. And I'm going to soften myself a little bit too, I think. Just a little. Okay, I want to come over to Lumetri Scopes, and you can see I've got the Waveform Luma scope open. And I can see both images. This is my reference scope, and this is the current scope. So you can see current is a little bit brighter, and that's just, part of that is just the angle of the camera. It's reading two different parts of the room. I'm sorry, you can see my microphone here, and I've got a little bit of a mess over there. But I do think I can bring down, because if we move the playhead, I am a little bit brighter here than I am here. So I'm going to see if I can bring down my highlights. That's looking a little bit better. I think the main difference remaining is the color of my lips is reading two different colors. I think having made this full screen, I think I brought the sharpness down too far. It wound up reading a little bit blurry. So I'm going to leave it there. I think that looks better. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do? I want to bring the brightness of the background down to make me stand out just a little bit more. That is looking better. Yeah, you can see I am exposed. So this is me in the reference image, and then this is me in the current image. And that is equally exposed. And then all of this background stuff I think I can bring it down a little bit further. Not much. So I think the last thing remaining, the biggest difference between the two, I think, is my face has a bit more brightness to it. And turn this back on. My face has a bit more brightness to it, but also my lips are a different color. And unfortunately, that's not something I can really make an adjustment for here. But I am going to see if I can bring up those highlights a bit more. All right, I think that is looking pretty good. Let me turn it on. I think that's looking pretty good. Next up, I want to show you how to edit. There are two different choices for how you can edit a multicam sequence. As you can see, I've switched over to the Essentials workspace, and I've put my two clips into one bin titled Tutorial. Now I am going to right click on tutorial and I'm going to create a multicam source sequence. I'm not going to change anything here, but I am going to come down to audio. You see sequence settings. I want to sync it to camera 1. So I'm going to leave that alone and I'm going to click OK. And now you can see it has created a multicam sequence for me. So I'm going to double click this and open it up. You can see that Premiere processed those clips and created this multicam sequence, but this isn't going to open in the timeline for us. What I want to do is then right click on that and come down to new sequence from clip. And now this is our multicam sequence. And I'm going to turn off comparison view there. But what I am going to turn on is multicam editing, which you can find in your button editor. I'm going to take it and drag it down, hit OK, and then I'm going to turn that on. And now you can see this is a bit like live switching. So you can see you've got the phone footage here, and you have the Canon footage here. And if you press play, you'll be able to go through, watch it live, and make selections on which camera you want to be part of the final footage. So you can click back and forth here in the program monitor, or you can press numbers 1 and 2, and that's another way of switching back and forth. You can see I have switched cameras a bunch, but there are no cuts that have happened. Cuts happen when you press play and then you switch cameras, and then you switch cameras again, and then let's switch cameras again. You can see on the timeline, nothing has happened, but then you press stop and there are your cuts. So now if you watch the program monitor, here you can see that we're cutting back and forth from different cameras. So again, if any of you have ever done anything like live switching, this is really mimicking a live switch situation. Now you can see the color work that I just did not show up on these clips. So if you double click it, you'll be able to open up the color workspace and make your changes here on this timeline. And you can turn off the multicam edit view when you're ready to do your color work. Now I know I told you that I would show you one other way to edit a multicam sequence if you don't want to do the live switching kind of vibe. So if we come back to Premiere, I have the original tutorial sequence open, and I am going to go to the program monitor. So you can see this is tutorial. And I am going to stack this footage on top of each other. And I'm gonna select these two and right click, I had trouble there, synchronize. So Premiere automatically synced the audio for me, and then I'll make sure that one's lined up. So now what I can do, because now these clips are all lined up together. So now what I can do is if I decide I want to start, let me make these invisible. I want to start on myself speaking directly into the Canon camera. I can press C for cut or for the razor tool. I can make a cut, press V for the selection tool. I can select this beginning part, and I can either delete it, or if this makes you nervous, instead of deleting the clips entirely, I can do a keyboard shortcut. It's Shift, Command, or Apple, A. And what that does, you can see I can turn these clips or turn these tracks on, move the playhead over them, and you can see those clips have been disabled. So you can always, I'll zoom in, you can always go Shift, Command, or Apple E, and that will re-enable those clips. So that is another way that you could go back and forth. So let's say, here's another place that I want to disable those clips, Shift, Command, E, and there I am again. So now we're seeing here track 1, track 2, 3, track 1 again. That's it for me. That's it for me. That's how you color match two different cameras to make them look as close as possible. And those are two different ways that you can edit a multicam sequence. If you decide to do the multicam sort of live switching, I suggest obviously that you do that before you do any color correction, because it's not going to transfer over. So you do your live switching and then you can go through and make any sort of color changes that you'd like. And the process is the same. I just showed it to you at the beginning of the tutorial. If you thought this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like to see more. Leave a comment down below with any questions or tips that you have to share. And I'll see you in the next one.